Hi, my name is Leslie Williams. I just woke up. I'm making this video this morning to help people understand still what's happening to targets of organized stalking, electronic harassment, and remote neural monitoring. I'm making this video this morning to illustrate what we experience. And, I'm going to say some things carefully because the San Diego police are directly involved in this crime, in the protection of it, in the escalation of it, in the expedition of it, and they are like totally 100% involved in this crime, in part because they're protecting the city in reference to the criminality that's been expedited towards me as a result of them being involved in it, and as a result of the fire department being involved in it, and as a result of what occurred in 2006 towards me, how they were directly involved in it, and how Point Loma Library staff, security, and patrons that came in were involved in it. Now, personally, I don't really have anything against some of the community members who have engaged in this because they were told a lie. And that's got to do with the actual fact of how community notifications are used as a vehicle to harass targets like us, and that way they can get their harassment done in a cost-effective manner. It's a tool that is supposed to be used by the police department to notify the community about sexual predators, pedophiles, and people who have done serious crimes. What they're using it for, since they're directly connected to organized crime, what they're using it for is to help them aid and abet in the breaking down of innocent people. And this is done so they can get the harassment achieved through cost-effective means, practically for free. And you can go to YouTube and type in "listen to a stranger," and you'll get the idea and gist of what I'm talking about. My name is Leslie Williams, and I'm in San Diego, California. And this is going to be a somewhat like a tidbit file, but it's going to kind of illustrate a whole for you. I am harassed like you would not believe over at USD and SDSU. And, I'm going to make this statement real fast before I forget it. Last time see, what they do, these types of expeditions are connected directly to human trafficking rings, sexual servitude rings, prostitution rings, and this is why 70% of targets are women, okay? And single women and or single mothers, people on disability, and they're into a bunch of other types of expeditions in reference to the motivations of why they go after targets. And I was a college student when this openly started. And, geez, God, I got so much to say because there's so much involved in this expedition. What they do is they do everything to a target. They have targets raped. And they'll even associate themselves to being part of the campaign as the target's being raped by specific things they'll do to a target while they're raping them. And this is the part of the depth of the extreme criminality that they perpetrate towards a target. Now, this is about human trafficking and sexual servitude rings and neural entrainment for human trafficking, behavior modification. And that's done in part so the remote neural monitoring can then be used to stimulate what is neurally entrained. Now, I made a blog concerning neural entrainment. I've made quite a few, and I made some YouTube videos about neural entrainment. Excuse me, so you can get an idea of what it is. But to give you an idea that neural entrainment and neural cognitive weapons, which are nothing but RFID implants, are used towards targets, do two things to give you a preliminary introduction in reference to what it is. Go to Google and type in Ramona Lopez. She's a California target. You'll get an idea of how frequent these implants and microchips are being used against targets. The audacity they have in entering a woman's home. She was an advocate, and just flat out implanting her. How they did it while she was awake and while she was sleeping in her own home. And also go to YouTube and type, let's see, I lost my train of thought. Go to YouTube and type in Bioethics Timothy W. and he flat out talks about brain entrainment and neurocognitive weapons. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a statement since I got that right on the tip of my tongue. Amy Goodman was appointed to head a bioethics commission because there's hundreds of thousands of targets experiencing what I'm experiencing, because when you're a target of organized stalking, you're also can be a target of what is known as human experimentation. And the reason why that is, and I know that sounds, I don't know, like human experimentation, that we don't have to worry about that, or that's just something I'm not interested in. Understand this and be clear. Hundreds of thousands of Americans right now are experiencing this in real time, okay? We're talking about average American citizens. We're talking about people that have kids, okay? And what they do is, well, they will enter your home while you're sleeping. Yeah. And to get an idea of the lengths and audacity and the lengths that these people go to Google and type in remote neural monitoring. You'll flat out see these people go as far as piping gases into your home while you're sleeping. They have the ability to literally enter your home while you're sleeping and implant you. And you have no idea. They got technology that can literally put you in a deep sleep. It's called the Wtahc machine, but I have a feeling that they just basically took the concept of the Wtahc machine and tweaked it and developed it into what is known as the 2012 scope of how technology has been advanced. In other words, it's the Wtahc machine has probably been shelved and forgotten about, because remote neural monitoring can literally manipulate, alter, and totally take advantage of you neurally. So the point I'm trying to say is that they can literally cause insomnia, and they can literally cause you to, once you fall asleep, to stay in a deep sleep. The remote neural monitoring should be enough for you to get the idea of what they're capable of. But anyways, Amy Goodman is the president of a university. Now, if you go to Google and type in organized stalking in universities, you're going to see 8 million responses. That's a huge amount of responses. And human experimentation has always happened on university campuses. Now, in reference to, right now there's a lawsuit. It was nothing but a farce. Okay? That bioethics thing was nothing but a farce. And they're being sued as a result of them not doing one thing for not even one target of these crimes. Not one thing. Now, and a sidebar notation, I want to explain something to you here. Organized stalking targets are picked for multiple motivations, multiple aspirations, and many types of different groups own this technology. Okay? The government owns it, corporations own it, organized crime owns it, cults own it, yeah, the wealthy own it, and all of these different types of groups have their minions that they're attached to that can have access to it and then possibly use it for their own agendas. Now, I already know flat out that the government's involved in my situation, and I already know flat out that they have sold my literal neural mapping to organized crime. I have no doubt in my mind about it whatsoever. But I'm going to get back to the universities. Right now, there's a 373 court case complaint affidavit that has been filed in federal court against Amy Goodman and fellow members of the board of the Bioethics Commission, because they did not do one thing to help one person in reference to their complaints when they approached the Bioethics Commissions about what's happening to them. And 373 pages is a lot, because there's a lot that's involved in these expeditions, and there's a lot, the military is also involved in these expeditions. There's a lot involved in what happens to us targets. And I'm going to make a simple statement here, but it's truth and it's reality. A lot of people out there in the neighborhood are being neurally manipulated, and they're not even targeted yet, because they're being neurally manipulated just to make money for the system, and to make money for criminals, and to make money for the business community as well. And I'm going to tell you something right now. This technology, just as another sidebar notation, the technology, remember how I said it's used for corporations? This technology is being funneled into businesses. That's why, in a way, these monitors that are in stores, okay, are literally being used for surveillance purposes by using remote neural monitoring, because when I go into a store, and since my neural mapping is already known, the monitor is set up to literally engage in fMRI imaging. And as a result, the monitors in stores are literally monitoring you neurally. And as a result, eventually, remote neural monitoring is going to be used in stores to incite people to buy things. A lot of the facial recognition is being done with monitors as well. What I want to try and help American citizens to understand something is that you just would not believe what I know. And a lot of the reasons, like I'd say at least 85% of the reasons why I make my videos is because I want to help people. I want to inform the public about what's going on, and I'm not into I'm not into emotionalism at all, even though this crime is emotional, because it's personal. I mean, when you're being manipulated neurally, when you're even being taunted and harassed about your own evoked potentials, which they do, they literally harass targets about their own evoked potentials. And for you to get a preliminary introduction in reference to that factual reality, go to YouTube and type in NYC Chronicles and listen to all of her videos, and you'll get a good preliminary introduction in reference to the fact that this is being expedited towards us targets in this way. And when you go to Google and type in remote neural monitoring, you're going to run across some PDF files concerning it. And the title of some of these PDF files flat out say how the title of it is actually literally says how the NSA harasses thousands of law-abiding Americans daily by the usage of remote neural monitoring. Now, all you have to do is look at the title of that, how the NSA harasses thousands of law-abiding citizens daily by the usage of remote neural monitoring. You can also go to www.surveillanceissues.com and listen to the Hearing Voices feature, and you'll get a good flat-out introduction in reference to additional technology that is used, like the neural phone. And I'm also going to brief Americans right now that they do have this technology that is being used at a scaled down cell phone physical level, to where they literally had this technology scaled down to the same size that cell phones and video cameras like the one I'm shaking and using right now. And this is dangerous stuff, because you can be neurally manipulated when you're on a bus, in a business, walking down the street, sitting in a restaurant, as a result of these individuals actually having these devices scaled down to the point to where they're mobile, okay? Which means they can come and sit next to you or behind you in a restaurant or in a movie theater and attempt to manipulate you neurally, okay? And I'm going to tell you another thing right now also as well. What we have to understand here is remote neural monitoring is used by piggybacking off a frequency of anything that emits a frequency in the extra low frequency wave spectrum, because the brain runs and operates on the extra low frequency wave spectrum. That's why the microwave auditory effect is so effective in harassing a target, and that is usually projected towards a target through scalar projected audible distinguishable signals. And getting back to the remote neural monitoring, you can literally sit in front of a computer monitor at a library, and since they know where you're at through the stalking and GPS tracking of either your cell phone or an RFID implant, what they do is they know where you're at a specific location, and even where you're at in that location. So if you're sitting in front of a library, monitor a library in front of a computer, which is right in front of a computer monitor, because you got to be looking at the monitor in order to do your computer work. What they can do is piggyback literally on the heat that is emitted from the monitor and the current that the monitor is operating on, and then triangulate the frequency that is generated either through the heat that is emitting from the monitor or the actual current that is transmitted in the monitor, and use that as the vehicle to literally continue the remote neural monitoring, or to try and manipulate you through it. My name is Leslie Williams. I was an electrical engineer student for many years, okay? I know exactly what I'm talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about with the brain, because I studied that extensively for over 12 years because I got learning disabilities. I was having problems in school. So I figured if I studied the brain, I might be able to develop strategies in reference to learning styles So I had to study how the brain operates in order for me to be able to try and develop strategies in reference to particular learning styles. I know exactly what I'm talking about. But the point I want to get back to also here is that one of the reasons why these criminal activities are being protected and the type of people that are used in them is because of many reasons. They want to continue the aspiration. They want to be able to protect the places they use, universities, from being sued, and they don't want exposure because they don't want enrollment affected. Look at what happened with the Penn State fiasco. Look what happened with Eastern University in Michigan when Laura Dickerson was killed. She was murdered and raped flat out right in her dorm room, and I was in Michigan when that happened. And I even literally flat out stood right outside of the Ann Arbor courthouse when those people were going to court for that crime. It was covered over the news like you would not believe. I mean, the whole street was filled with news reporters. And I literally walked past the family of the guy who committed the crime, and I also walked past the family of Laura Dickerson. Literally, physically walked past them. And what Eastern University did was cover up that crime until it couldn't be covered up anymore. And then they finally let out what happened because it was rape and murder. And what they did was they covered it up for over a week. And then when they got caught in covering up, they tried to use the excuse that different departments didn't know what was going on. And so as a result, information got rerouted and routed to different departments, and as a result, the real information fell through the cracks. Total bullshit. Let me tell you something right now. I've listened to radio broadcasts about this Sandusky thing, and all the radio broadcasts are saying the same thing. The cops knew about what Sandusky was doing because Joe Paterno went down and complained about it many times. They covered it up. Campus safety covered it up. They do not care at all about what happens to students or about the crime that happens on university campuses. All they care about is covering it up. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I have literally been gang stalked, which is also another term that describes organized stalking, by campus safety on multiple university campuses, by students, by staff, and other employees, like maintenance employees. You would not believe the criminality that is being perpetrated towards us targets of this crime by university staff even. I went over to SDSU last weekend. I think it was last Sunday. And the reason why, and so we'll see what they do in part is they get along a target's path and they'll repeat certain behaviors. And this is done to make a target constantly experience the mental response and the emotional response and the physiological response they feel as a result of them feeling stalked, as a result of them constantly seeing these physical gestures being brought about towards them along the routes, because that in turn makes them feel stalked. And I'm going to give you an illustration of how this works. Say if you're like in a grocery, say if you're at a university, and you're standing in line in a restaurant that they have sometimes on university campuses, and it comes you and they shove you on your shoulder and say, "Hey, freak," and then they laugh so it doesn't escalate into a provocation. So you shrug it off. Then you go later on that day in the library and somebody comes up to you and shoves you on the shoulder, like they shove you on the shoulder and they call you a freak. You think to yourself, this has got to be a coincidence, okay? Then later on that night when you're at the bus stop, somebody comes up to you and does the same thing. They shove your shoulder and they call you a freak, okay? Then you think to yourself, what's going on here, okay? Then you experience it about 4 times the next day, 6 times the day after that, 7 times the day after that, and you're experiencing it all by complete, separate, total strangers. This is the point I'm trying to make to you in reference to what they do. Instead of, though, doing it by coming up to you and shoving you on the shoulder and calling you a freak, what they'll do is get total strangers and use different ones every day to do other things that they purposely make sure that you notice, like getting on the bus or trolley and holding their hand right up to their face like this, or putting a finger in their mouth like this, or standing in front of you or next to you and doing this with their finger, okay, or doing this, okay. Yeah, we're doing this, okay, every single day along all of your routes. including using even members in the business community. They will also sensitize you to specific ways of clearing your throat, because what they'll do is when they do this, they'll go yeah, and then put their finger back. Then when you're along your next route, they'll do the same thing and then clear your throat in the same way, because they're trying to sensitize you to that type of clearing your throat. They also do the same thing when it comes to specific ways of coughing, like or like that. Yeah, and this is what I mean. This is what they do. They'll literally sensitize a target to specific verbal statements included, like when they get along your route, they'll try and sensitize targets to repeating the word she. Yeah, as they're talking, they'll constantly repeat. See, what they did with me in Michigan is they got around me as they initiated a trauma campaign, and then got around me and behaved in the same way that I just got done showing you in reference to doing this and this. They would get around me and stand right in front of me and pretend like they're talking to each other while they're looking at me, trying to make you. They try to sensitize targets are being talked about. And then while they're doing this, they're associating themselves to the target by doing this while they're having this conversation while looking at the target, okay? And when they're doing this, they'll say specific things. This is an illustration. They'll get in front of you with two people pretending like they're having a conversation. And then while they'll do this, once they've got the target's visual attention, they'll do this to keep the target's attention on them, because they sensitize targets to wondering what's going on, why is this happening, because it's unusual behavior, and it's an innate response for targets to protect themselves. So in other words, a target's going to stay visually aligned with what's happening towards them, because it's viewed as a threat, because stalking and harassment is viewed as a normal response. You know, it's a threat to, and it's a normal response to make sure that you watch what might occur around you as a result of what's occurring towards you. Okay, so get this. So what they'll do is stand around you with two people, and they'll do this to get your attention and to keep it. And then while your attention is gotten, they'll talk to each other and do this. And then when they're talking, what they'll do is say specific things and repeat what they say. And what they'll do at this time is they'll say certain things like, yeah, she, and then you can't hear the rest of the conversation. So they want to make you feel like you're being talked about, yeah, while you're being stalked by people you don't know, and probably right after you've been assaulted. Okay? And this is done to keep you hyper-vigilant and hyper-alert, because they want you hyper-alert to what they're doing, because this is their goal, to sensitize you to further things while they have you hyper-alert and your attention is brought towards them. So while they have these conversations that are like this in front of you, that they've